What's going on, everyone? Welcome to our new project. Behind me is a C4 Corvette that was left to die and get crushed, turn into scrap metal, and be done. But the boys do not let things die around here. So what our plan is going to be piecing this together for as low cost as possible, reusing as many stock parts that we can find and junk parts from other cars, and hopefully we can turn this thing into an absolute monster of a death trap. Yes, that's what this thing's gonna be. There's gonna be zero safety involved. Probably the most safety we're gonna have is some racing seats with some belts. That's probably it. Maybe a simple roll cage, but this thing is supposed to be bare bones, maximum fun. So join us as we tear into this thing and hopefully have it up and running here soon for everyone to enjoy. A big thing that we're facing with the C4 Corvette is obviously the body is fiberglass. So instead of just welding mounts to the body and then mounting the fuel cell, we're having to get kind of creative with the mounts. So pretty much using long bolts that'll be going through the body, big washers on both sides, which will hold these mounts down, these metal mounts that we have on just square stock, and then we'll be mounting the fuel cell to that square stock.
Oh, it's happening.
So big thing nowadays is obviously LS engines kind of rule the world of any kind of piece together vehicle. And while they're great motors, you know, we're trying to do things, take things back a little bit. So in front of us, small block Chevy that came out of a street stock car, so a circle track car that hopefully will fit. It's got a nice rear sump pan, racing pan, so it should fit pretty nicely. And you know, we're gonna try to mount it as far back as possible. Mechanical fuel pump. So this thing should be pretty bare bones. We won't have much wiring going on in this car, and that's probably for the better. You know, the more electronics and the more wiring you have, it seems to, you know, just create more problems. We were hoping to get away with using it just to keep things even more simple, but fitting it into the C4 frame just wasn't gonna work out. So that'll be getting taken off and replaced with the electrical fuel pump. It's a new day in the shop. Yesterday there was quite a few people in here, so it was kind of hard to film with everyone talking and everyone doing their own thing. But I'll give you a walk around of kind of what we accomplished yesterday and kind of, you know, what we see next for projects that, you know, we need to accomplish to keep going with this C4 Corvette behind me. So the initial plan for a battery location was right here on the frame rail. You can actually see the nutserts that were installed with some bracketry to hold a battery in there. But we just kind of had some worries about fitment issue. So the plan with that 358 is, instead of just doing normal headers down underneath the car, we're gonna do some derby headers. So they're gonna come straight up, no windshield. So we're gonna be getting blasted by all those fumes, which will make the ride even more fun. It's gonna be absolutely obnoxious. It's gonna be super loud, but it's gonna be super fun. So because of those fitment issues over there, Keenan yesterday thought that it would be best to mount the battery kind of behind the driver, which ends up working out perfectly. In the C4 Corvette, this is where your ABS module would be. So all your lines run back to this module. So we're kind of redoing all the brake lines for this car. It's gonna be independent front and rear. So that module could go. So it'd open up this space for this battery to go. So small Optimum battery out of a Nissan race car, super lightweight, will be perfect for what we need. We don't need a huge battery with a lot of cold cranking amps. So this will be perfect. So really all that's left with the battery is just finalizing some mounts, making sure that it's secure in there. We obviously don't want a battery flying around. So the plan will obviously be ground, probably in the rear to keep it short and easy. Power wire will probably go underneath the car, come up to a shutoff switch inside here. So that way we can kill all power if there's an emergency, or if the car's just gonna sit for a while. That way we don't drain the battery if there is a draw. And then obviously all of our power wires to the front. Probably do a nice style fuse block somewhere here on the firewall, or maybe inside the car to kind of keep it a little bit protected, since there won't be a body on this car. So big thing that I was focused on yesterday getting done was putting this fuel cell in. So this fuel cell is a new fuel cell. It was purchased for another project, so it was laying around. Obviously, probably a lot of people are going to comment on the fact that it's crooked. Yes, we know it's not straight and beautiful like most people would like. The reasoning behind that is it is a sump tank. So it would have been nice if it was a non-sump tank, because then we could have laid it out however we wanted. But because it being sumped, on the bottom of the tank, there's kind of a little protrusion. So we tried getting it inside of the hole there to try to make it as level as possible. It worked out pretty well. Obviously, like I've said before, the problem behind this chassis is the fact that everything is fiberglass. So having to use some square stock, ended up putting bolts on both sides, welding them together, going through the fiberglass, big washer on the bottom, and then that allowed us to attach the fuel tank to that square stock. On the front side, we had to get a little creative. So this well here, we had this mount kind of hanging over. So I ended up kind of just fabbing up some roll cage tubing with some sheet metal, and it's kind of same thing going through that fiberglass. Big nut and bolt, very wide washer on the bottom side with a nut, holds it pretty good. This thing is not going anywhere, so it is on there real nice, and it worked out pretty good. So I'll end up capping this connection off, but then we'll be creating our feed off that line. So it'll be AN line that we have laying around from other projects. It'll go kind of down into this well, through the floor, and then we'll run it up front to the motor. So the nice thing about having carbureted motors is it's all low pressure fuel. With these carbureted setups, we don't have to be pumping 60 pounds of pressure like your modern LS EFI style fuel systems. So really the best part about that is we have our fuel cell, we're gonna be running some line, and then all we need is a fuel pump. We don't have to worry about regulating that fuel pressure from 60 pounds down to 6 to 8 pounds. It's coming out of the pump exactly what we need. Keeps the system super simple, very reliable. So this is a Holley Mighty Mite pump that we have laying around in the shop. We're not sure if this will be the one that we'll end up using or not. It's 32 GPH flow. They say it's good for up to 400 horsepower, which honestly 400 horsepower in this car is probably going to feel absolutely insane. But the motor is definitely capable of making more than that. So we aren't sure if this will be the one that we end up using or not, but super simple design. It goes below the tank, so the tank kind of feeds the pump, and then the pump will then pressurize that fuel up to the carburetor. So for steering, it's got a steering wheel and steering shaft out of the stock car where the motor came out of. Ended up bolting up pretty good. Some adjustments need to be made and a little bit of bracing. As you can see, some bracing definitely needs to be done. Obviously this mount here, it's not super strong. It's not really meant to be mounted there, but it worked for us. So essentially we'll probably end up welding in kind of a bar that runs across here and then going down to the actual steering mount to this bar here. Where the steering shaft comes through the firewall, we went to Tractor Supply and actually got a roller bearing with these roller bearing carriers here. It ended up working out really well. So the bearing kind of just slid onto that steering shaft and then got clamped in between these two bearing clamps and then bolted right to the firewall. So it worked out really well. Tightened up the steering shaft a lot. Obviously there wasn't much support there to begin with. So that was definitely an easy way around going through the firewall with that different style steering shaft. So drivetrain for the C4 Corvette is going to be a fully forged light and crank 358 Chevy small block with a turbo 350 behind it that we will have to figure out a mount for the C-bar channel that runs from the rear end up to where the stock trans used to be. So we're hoping to make about 400 horsepower on this setup.
Definitely going to be really rowdy. Obviously, the car weighs nothing. We had it up on the lift yesterday, and the slightest bit of weight on either the back or the front was causing the thing to rock back and forth on the lift. So this thing's definitely going to be lightweight, even with lower horsepower as today's standards. It's going to be an absolute ripper. It's going to be probably super unsafe, but we're going to be laughing a lot and having way more fun than we should be. But that's the best part about it all.